Welcome to today's Explainer. We usually just walk through our modern world feeling pretty confident that we have a solid grip on the past. We learn all the dates, we study the big empires, and we just kind of assume the story of humanity is this neat, continuous line. But the truth? The truth is that our understanding of history is absolutely riddled with massive, unexplainable blind spots.
So what if the biggest parts of human history are just entirely missing? We actually suffer from this thing called the illusion of knowledge. Modern society really loves to think it has the past all figured out, but as we're about to uncover, the historical record is actually full of gaping, incomprehensible gaps. We aren't just missing a few pages of the history book here, we are literally missing entire chapters.
Okay, let's dive into this. Today's roadmap covers 4 distinct anomalies. 1. Entire civilizations lost. 2. Mysterious attackers and castaways. 3. Undeciphered texts and maps. And 4. Inexplicable ancient engineering. All right, Section 1. Entire civilizations lost.
Picture this. Just outside modern-day Mexico City sit the ruins of an ancient metropolis. At its absolute height, over 100,000 people live there, walking amongst the enormous Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. And for the ancient world, that is just a staggering population.
But here's the crazy part. Despite that massive scale, we are faced with a total ignorance of their true identity. When the Aztec Empire stumbled upon the city in the 1400s, it had already been abandoned and overgrown for nearly 1,000 years. The Aztecs were so awestruck by its sheer size that they simply named it Teotihuacan, which means the city of the gods, because they believed only deities could have built something so massive. Around 600 AD, its temples were systematically burned and completely abandoned, and we have absolutely no idea why.
Now, what's really interesting about this next discovery is how it completely disrupted centuries of established beliefs that Chinese civilization originated strictly in the Yellow River Valley. In 1986, the Sanxingdui bronzes were found in the Sichuan Basin. We're talking about massive, almost alien-looking bronze masks with huge exaggerated eyes, towering statues with oddly long arms, and this incredible 3,000-year-old bronze tree. We don't have their written language or their true name, but we do know one weird detail. They deliberately smashed these sacred bronze treasures right into the dirt before abandoning their city.
Next up, we face the Indus Valley paradox. Back around 2500 BC, they were building incredibly advanced megacities that actually featured early indoor plumbing and covered drains running right under the streets. The civilization covered an area larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Yet the paradox here is super frustrating. Their script remains completely unreadable to this day, and around 1900 BC, these massive cities were just gradually abandoned without a single clear sign of war or fire.
To wrap up this first section, let's look at ancient Scotland around 1700 years ago. The Picts were a military force so unbelievably strong that they actually repelled the Roman Empire's expansion. They literally forced the Romans to build a massive cross-country wall just to keep them out of Britannia. Yet for all their strength, they left practically 0 written records behind, just these eerie, incredibly precise carved symbols that we can't decipher. Over a few centuries, they didn't fall in some fiery collapse, they simply faded, slowly blending into history until they vanished entirely.
Moving right along, Section 2, Mysterious Attackers and Castaways.
So who exactly were the Sea Peoples? It's a question that honestly still haunts historians today. Around 1200 BC, the eastern Mediterranean suffered an apocalyptic collapse. In just a few decades, the world's greatest Bronze Age superpowers inexplicably fell to ruin. Right in the middle of all this chaos, ancient texts and Egyptian temple carvings start recording a mysterious group of attackers coming from the sea. But we have no map, no name for their homeland, and not a single confirmed origin. They just appeared, destroyed, and vanished. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply human migration patterns can just totally baffle us, like with the Canary Islands castaways. When Europeans arrived there in the 1300s, they found a thriving population with complex societies and mummification practices living in total isolation. The big problem? They had absolutely 0 boats. I mean, how do you arrive on islands surrounded by dangerous ocean currents without boats? Theory 1 suggests their nomadic North African ancestors arrived, had no reason to travel by sea again, and just completely forgot how to sail. Theory 2, though, offers a slightly darker alternative. The Roman Empire was constantly crushing North African rebellions and might have simply rounded up these tribes and dumped them into exile on the islands.
Let's get into Section 3, Undeciphered Texts and Maps.
Back in 1908, archaeologists in Crete found the Minoan Phaistos Disc, which dates all the way back to 1700 BC.
The symbols on both sides of this disc weren't just carved by hand. They were actually stamped into the clay using small, individual seals. It is the earliest known use of movable type printing in human history. When you visualize that gap, it is staggering. This brilliant anomaly beats Johannes Gutenberg's printing press by more than 3,000 years. Yet, whoever made it never seemed to use this revolutionary system to mass-produce anything else, and its message remains completely undecoded. Then there's the copper scroll, found near the Dead Sea in 1952. While the other scrolls they found were parchment, this one was oxidized copper rolled up really tight. When experts finally sliced it open, it proved to be a literal treasure map. It lists 64 underground hiding places containing an estimated $1 billion of hidden gold and silver. But whose wealth was it? Well, Theory 1 argues it was the collective wealth of the ascetic Jewish sect that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. Theory 2 suggests that during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, temple priests frantically smuggled the national treasure out of the city and buried it. The catch here? The directions rely on long-lost landmarks and mysteriously end with random, unexplained Greek letters.
So the crucial point is that history is filled with deliberate messages that act as total dead ends. The Indus script, the Phaistos symbols, the copper scroll, but perhaps the most baffling of them all is the Voynich script. Found in 1912 and carbon dated to the early 1400s, this manuscript is filled with a totally unidentifiable alphabet alongside these truly bizarre illustrations of strange plants, astronomical charts, and human figures bathing in green liquid. It's so wildly complex that even the greatest codebreakers in the world, including the very same people who cracked the Enigma machine during World War II, completely failed to decipher a single word of it.
And now, our final part. Section 4. Inexplicable Ancient Engineering.
14 tons. Think about that weight for a second. Scattered all across the plain of jars in central Laos are over 2,000 massive solid stone jars, some of them standing up to 10 feet tall. Dating back as far as 1200 BC, these ancient jars were carved from solid rock and somehow dragged from miles from the nearest mountains. And the biggest mystery? No known civilization has ever claimed them. They were created by an entirely unknown people who left zero written records of their massive endeavor.
Let's move to and see how this builds when we look at a Micronesian city started around 1200 AD, Madol. This engineering impossibility gets even wilder. We're talking about a city built entirely on the water, spread out across 100 artificial islands. They constructed walls using stone columns weighing up to 50 tons, transported across open water from a quarry on the opposite side of the island. And they achieved this staggering feat using absolutely zero pulleys, no draft animals, and no wheels, all with a local population of just 25,000 people. It defies logic to such a degree that local oral history insists magic was literally the only way these massive stones flew through the air. Now, if you think moving stones across the water's wild, imagine casually knocking down a basement wall in your house in Turkey in 1963 and discovering Derinkuyu. This wasn't just some cave, it was a subterranean metropolis plunging 18 stories deep into the earth. It was fully functioning, capable of housing up to 20,000 people along with their livestock, complete with miles of ventilation shafts, deep water wells, and these massive circular stone doors that could actually seal off the tunnels from the inside. While early Christians and others later used it to hide, we have no sure way of knowing who actually dug this thing out in the first place or exactly when they achieved this mind-blowing feat.
Which brings our journey full circle to a final, provocative thought. If these massive cultures, cities of 100,000 people, vast underground metropolises, builders moving 50-ton stones across the water, could be completely forgotten by time, what parts of our current, modern civilization might one day become unexplainable gaps for future archaeologists? Will they look at the remnants of our society and find themselves wondering, who were they? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the world around you.